And that's the Moment Makers podcast.
We're live.
So, we were talking before we started recording about how you're allergic to gluten.
Well, not necessarily allergic to gluten.
How you think you might be allergic to gluten.
You know,
how you're staying away from gluten.
I'm staying away from gluten because, it makes me feel like utter shit.
I feel that, though.
Yeah.
Tristan jokes me all the time about it, but...
I do not. I'm not a gluten shamer. I like to be...
Is that a term we're coining
I
here
used
on the
to be
podcast?
a gluten shamer. I used to hate everybody who had a gluten allergy or anything. I was like, fuck that. It's not real.
Yeah.
And now...
It's very real.
And now I'm like, well, I'm one of them.
Well, my daughter is.
Neither of us have diagnosed, been to a doctor and been diagnosed with a gluten allergy.
Well, my thing is, Maeve...
It's anecdotal.
Well, Maeve has allergies.
Yeah.
We don't know if it's specifically gluten, but we know it's something like that. And so that made it a lot more real to me. So, yeah, when I used to work at a restaurant, people would be like, I need your gluten-free bread. I thought that was stupid. But now that I've experienced firsthand how sick it can make people, I don't think it's as stupid anymore.
But it doesn't keep you from making fun of me about it.
That's different.
Studies say up to 40% of the population, especially in America, could be have gluten sensitivity.
Intolerant.
Well, it's because that's 95% of our diet.
Well, yeah.
Yeah, at this point, and also it's all gluten is so very processed.
Yeah.
Exactly, and that's the biggest thing. A lot of people, if they go out and grow their own wheat and bake their own bread and all that, there's a much less likely chance of them having an issue.
Or just use unbleached gross flours.
I will say her mom's been making bread for us here. It's by far better than any bread you'll buy at the store. By far.
But that doesn't mean it's necessarily good for you.
Well, I mean,
it's better
not
than anything.
Inherently
but
bad
it does
for
help
you
me
either.
sleep at night.
And if it helps you sleep at night, man.
Anything
After
that's
my
not
massive grilled
processed
cheese.
is good for you, right? It's not.
I wouldn't say
not
that.
necessarily not good for it. So anything that's not processed is better for you than processed.
Oh
Yeah.
Easy.
So if you cut out the processed shit, you're already doing better than half the population, if not more.
Hello?
She wants to be on.
While he's away, I'll go ahead and talk about, last night I had a very tragic moment because, this gluten sensitivity is a new thing. And I have very little food in my home that is not gluten-based.
Right.
So I was going to have this nice can of bean and bacon soup. That sounds delicious, right? Not
good.
actually. Well, maybe.
Oh, well, I thought it did. Maybe I'm just gross then.
I just don't have anything in my house.
Well, I'm hungry, so that sounds good.
I took the can, put it in my bowl, I was about to get it, and then looked at the can. Has wheat
thickened with flour.
Yeah. Everything's got gluten, man.
Well,
ketchup, mayonnaise.
Soups and stuff. It's a thickener.
Yeah, man.
Everything's got dairy in it, too.
Yeah, that's true. I can handle dairy, though. I love it. I'm a dairy man.
Well, I mean, what people don't realize is
cheese wine.
The vast majority of the population has some type of a dairy intolerance, whether it's lactose or dairy itself, but it's just not diagnosed. A lot of it's because the processed foods that we eat keep us sick, so we don't realize what we are intolerant or allergic to. And that's kind of where the science is with people that do elimination diets or strict diets that eliminate major food groups. A lot of times when you go on a restrictive diet like that, you cut out processed foods and you realize what you're allergic to. I mean,
the bullshit.
Yeah, literally.
You're allergic
That's
to the
essentially
bullshit.
what I did. I didn't know if I was gluten sensitive or anything, but once I started taking it out of my diet, I didn't feel like crap after I ate. Because I would get so depressed, sad, and just feel terrible after I ate.
Well, that's how Brennan tells me I would feel so much better if I just did only meat. But I'm a strong believer that everybody is different. Their bodies are different.
So
I don't have a gallbladder, and I tried keto. Well, eating only dairy and meat and stuff made me feel like shit.
Yeah.
Well,
look past the keto flu and everything. I did it for a while, and I never felt better. I felt worse than I had ever felt in my life. And it wasn't because I wasn't being strict. It wasn't because I didn't do it long enough. It's that I specifically think that my body was not made for that diet.
Yeah.
But I think that's based on where are you from? What did your family eat?
Origins.
Exactly.
But also in general, our bodies aren't used to this much of processed food that we have in our day-to-day life. This is all new. This is all
Right.
new for us, so we have no idea how it's going to affect us long term.
That's scary.
It could be. It
Well,
could
and
be reasons
that's the
for
biggest thing,
a lot
and
of
that's
different
why,
ailments.
like you mentioned the carnivore diet. I dabbled with that in the last couple of years, on and off, and done a lot of research into why it exists, why it's a way of eating for people, and the thought process behind it is that that's how the majority of our ancestors ate for millennia. And all of a sudden, we started processing grains and vegetables and fruits from all over the world and including them in diets that wouldn't have had that at all.
Yeah.
Like traditionally.
Traditionally.
They would not
Yeah.
have eaten that.
Like bananas, we wouldn't have had access to bananas.
Well, the bananas we have
In
now
any-
are
completely-
manufactured.
Yeah, I mean, they're not even close to the real thing.
They're so good.
It's a texture thing.
So
I
it's
can't do it.
insane the way that we've just accepted nutrition and the bogus studies that have caused people to believe that meat is a carcinogen and that you look like you want to say something.
Well, I mean, even like grains and wheat
Yeah.
and all that stuff is at the bottom of the food pyramid. That's the base of
Yeah.
everything. When it definitely should not
No.
be that way.
No,
That's
it should be
way
a
too much.
supplemental thing, maybe at most.
Yeah.
But your basis should be a good protein. Like, I genuinely do think that even though, like, I couldn't survive just because of how it made me feel on just meat, that doesn't mean I don't think that long term it would have had good benefits for me. So I try to always do, like, a protein is the base, and, like, a carb would be the last thing. Which is really hard, and honestly, I haven't been good at it at all.
And I
but
do
that's
want
what
to
I
mention
like to
too, so Sean Baker is the one that kind of is coined with the new wave of carnivore diet. He's a doctor who started prescribing like a keto way of eating for his patients, got his medical license revoked, and
really?
wasn't able to practice medicine for a period of time.
Uh-huh.
All that to say, kind of moving, we were talking about some politics and stuff before we started talking about gluten and started recording. But with the political side of meat, the left, liberal left, wants to push that meat is a major component to climate change and global warming.
Cow farts.
Cow farts. And there's some that don't subscribe to that belief. You're not really left-leaning liberal by any means. You're libertarian, kind of like what we are.
Yeah.
But so Sean Baker, he talks about when he talks to vegans or people that push that narrative, that when you cut out meat, you have to supplement that with more caloric dense foods.
Yeah.
Because meat, what it has is protein and fat. Fat is calorically more dense than what protein or carbs are by themselves. There's about 4 grams for every calorie of for every gram there's 4 calories for carbs and proteins. For every fat there's 9.
Okay.
So you have more calories in fat than you do carbs or protein.
Yeah.
His point is when you take away that food source, you have to supplement it with more food.
Yeah.
Well, then you're adding more agriculture, which is then processing industrially.
Well, then it's easy to overeat at
Well,
that point.
Well, not just that, but the climate change aspect of it. You have more carbon going into the air from the way that the soil's treated, the way that it's not, because there's rejuvenating agriculture, something where the cows they'll move the cows from plot to plot to rejuvenate the land, to make it more nutrient dense and beneficial. When you take that away, well, the soil's just bad.
Yeah, it's just
so
crap.
I don't know. I mean, I definitely get like the
and I will say, and I don't mean to cut you off there, the part of the issue is the mass-produced meat industry. Like
because I mean the quality of life for all of those animals. Like I definitely get why so many people are against meat because of that reason alone. Because I mean the quality of life for cattle and chickens and turkey, it's terrible in a lot of different places. Now if you're doing like local meat and different things like that, like locally here, Swift Level, they treat their animals very good, very well.
Right.
So I mean it really just depends on on what you're supporting, what you're buying into. But I mean, such giant companies.
Well, and you got to think the quality of what you're eating too
is important.
Yeah, I mean, if they're all smashed into a field that's
Well,
an
if
acre,
they're stressed their entire lives, you're not going to get any nutrients from that food.
Yeah.
So your body's going to be starved of nutrient-dense food.
Yeah.
So you're going to be even hungrier to fill that need that your body has. So it literally makes you fat. Like it literally does.
Yeah. It's a good point, because I mean, I guess back in the olden times, they would have all the animals they would eat what's around them, what's naturally there. Like we wouldn't have large encampments of different animals. They would just be roaming where they were, so they would get their nutritional needs met by themselves.
Well, and the way that our body stores fat is for fuel. So when we constantly eat every meal, 3 meals a day with snacks, breakfast the most important meal, it's made to make us fat. It literally has no other purpose but to keep us constantly eating, constantly hungry.
It's really hard to relearn that behavior though, because like for me, I was never somebody who liked to eat breakfast. Like my body was never like, oh, you're up, bitch, it's time to eat something. It would make me sick, but I thought that meant something was wrong with me because my body needed breakfast or I wasn't healthy.
Yeah.
So then you start immediately with this negative body image and negative view of yourself and your health because you're not fitting the narrative that's traditionally pushed. So at a really young age, because I got sick eating breakfast, well, that meant there was something wrong with me. So now you get into things like eating disorders, and it's just this like avalanche of just crap that's not true.
Yeah, I mean, traditions are stupid sometimes.
Right.
They're pushed for different reasons, but really it breaks down to what do you need as an individual?
What works for your body.
Yeah, exactly. And you can look into your family history, and that will give you a lot of insight, I feel like.
Yeah.
But it won't always give you the answer because literally everybody's different.
Exactly.
So, I mean, you can't just look back at, this is what worked for us for a long time now.
Right.
You were really itching to use that voice. I'm glad you found a place to use it.
I'm going to use it a few more times, trust me. I use that when I'm doing.
That's a good segue into the topic of
Kermit the Frog?
No, what you were saying about traditions, and that's a good kind of segue into the topic of like religion and politics. Because we were talking a little bit about that before we started recording too, and I think that was a good.
We're gonna make some enemies with this podcast, Brennan.
I
Perhaps, I don't know.
We
Not
don't
if they follow their religion. That's the issue. If you actually follow your religion, you would hear what we say, and you would take that, and you would learn from it, or you would have a conversation with us. But a lot of people will not. And to me, I'm like, why subscribe to a religion if you don't even hold those values as your own?
Yeah.
Well, and
it stresses me.
I don't know. I can't think too far into that anymore because a lot of it's very hypocritical, and it's
right, exactly.
a lot
That's
of
what
individuals.
So the biggest thing with it is that everyone's just trying to figure out what the hell is going on. We're all on a journey of trying to figure out who we are, what our place is in the world, and that's where I've came to a place of having more empathy for people that are like that.
Yeah.
I have empathy, but I'm a little bit bitter, and I'm just being honest. I have a lot of bitterness.
You have a lot of personal. We have a lot of personal ties to it because of the family that we have.
Well, you do too.
Yeah, I think we all do.
Well, yeah, but
who doesn't around?
We're around it more.
Yeah, you definitely are. I have detached
especially
myself.
having the kids. It makes it hard to distance the way that we would need to.
For our sanity.
But where I've come to is that we're all on a spiritual journey. Whether you believe in spirituality or you don't, we're all on a spiritual journey.
It's kind of just this existential thing that we're all looking for, whether you believe in actual spirituality or not. There's always something. There's a grander thing that we traditionally all sort of want to seek, a purpose, something. There's something.
Or at least answer the question of why am I here?
Yeah.
How did that happen? Because so you think, oh well, one day I'm gonna have to tell my kids, where do kids come from? Like, but who's gonna ever tell us where did we come from? Like, that's just an instinct you have that question.
Yeah, like why is my consciousness in this body that is me right now? And
exactly.
How the fuck did I get here?
Exactly.
And what's
it's overwhelming.
Oh,
well,
it is. For
so
sure.
there's
That's
a belief.
Why there's religion.
I don't know if it's even a religion. I think it's just a spirituality. I'm on.
Well,
like
I mean
this,
the institution of religion.
I understand.
The institution. The
The-
hoity-toities who have their traditions.
But there's a belief, and I don't know what religion it would be subscribed to, but the idea is that we're in this meat suit to experience things, right?
I don't like that.
Meat suit.
We're in this body
That
to
makes
a
it
leather
very.
jacket.
It makes me feel cheap.
It's a
well,
leather jacket.
we're
Right.
here to experience new things and to, if you believe in past lives or that kind of
Yeah, I
ideology.
could get into that.
Well, we can. I mean, we've
Yeah.
got plenty of time to go into that kind of stuff. But that's one way of thinking. Christianity, we all grew up Christians.
Christians.
Christian.
We're good Christians.
Which I think is very telling of the people that taught us, because all of our friends have all fallen
That's
away.
just because we're heathens.
No,
I'm just obviously.
all
just
but
starting
one.
with-
All but one of us that were
Yeah.
like in a core group of
All right,
friends
but let's not-
aren't Christians anymore,
Yeah.
and would not claim to be Christians
Yeah.
anymore.
Well, I mean, it kind of depends what you count as the core group.
Well,
I think a lot of us don't.
That's true.
I think for a lot of us, it's not that, oh, we're not Christians anymore. It's that we are more enlightened and we can see the other side of the coin where we weren't allowed to before because it was a sin. But now we are
Yeah.
able to be open-minded, so we can look into things. It's
Yeah,
not-
you can look into things
Exactly.
and see like the inaccuracies within the Bible and not feel like, oh well, it's well, you know what? In the Bible it says it definitely
It's
will
true.
never get hindered anywhere else. But if you actually look into it, there's a lot of different things that state
Exactly.
otherwise.
There's
But
Right.
I mean, not to denote that, but it just discourages that thinking when you're in the institution
Well,
itself.
there's a
because
term.
it's evil to even
Mhm.
question.
There's
which
a
is
term,
frustrating.
and it's very common with like the right, the Trump supporting right. And generally the Trump supporters are Christians, and that's just kind of how it
Traditionally
is.
speaking, for whatever reason.
Yeah, it's weird.
Which will never make sense to me how
Yeah.
Christians are Republican. That just will
Yeah.
never make sense.
Well,
to me.
not only like to a certain extent, I get the old sort of standard of Republican before Trump and before like probably the last decade, maybe decade and a half.
But
You
it
see
would
a
make
little
more sense
bit.
for them to
Yeah.
be liberal because they're
Conservative
Jesus was a
makes
liberal.
more sense to
If
me.
you
Yeah.
really want to break it
Yeah.
down, he was a
Yeah,
liberal.
it's true. Yeah.
He fought for injustice. He went against
That
the
should
law.
just be a good person, though. It shouldn't.
It
It
should.
shouldn't be a split party.
It
should
shouldn't
be
be a term. It
are
should
you
just
a
be
good person?
the
Yeah.
standard.
Right.
We're buying into the two-party system right now. We can't.
Exactly.
But
It frustrates
there's a term that's I can't remember the exact term that it refers to. But what it is, there's a thing that happens when you question somebody who's been taught their entire life a way of believing, and when you question them and you make a valid argument, they double down on their argument because
Yeah.
they don't have anything to back up what they say, so
Yeah.
they just double down on it. And that's what Christians do a lot.
It's a circular argument because it's like, well, the Bible says it will never fail, and so you can't question it.
Yeah.
Well, here's
But
actual
if that one
evidence.
statement is wrong, then what else is wrong?
Right. Well, then you're just misinterpreting what the Bible said. So it circles back around to, well, the Bible says it's so easy a child can understand it. But if a child, I consider myself young, a child. I'm not astute and learned in
children of
biblical
God.
things, but I know my Bible pretty well. I mean, I was a Christian for
Yeah,
20,
yeah.
almost
I
24
feel like
years.
all of us do.
Right. So I feel like I know my verses. I can,
Mhm.
quote a lot of scripture. But to me, I'm like, that just gives me more fuel to think, okay, well, I can think of a scripture, but I know that for a fact isn't necessarily true.
Yeah.
But you can't question that because the Bible says you can't question that. That's like me telling my daughter, you can't do that. Well, they say, why? Well, because I said so. Well, it wouldn't make sense for me to tell them why?
Yeah,
Yeah.
it does.
Like,
you need
tell
to.
me why.
We have been stuck in this mentality for generations that, well, this is just the way it is. Well, why is it that way? It should be
Well, and I think-
different.
But you can't ask that question because you're evil. Or
Well,
that's
I think
evil
that's very
to ask
telling of our generation and the ones after us.
Because
too.
I really think it's because we have, all of us in the most recent years that have happened, there's so much knowledge
Yeah.
that has been put right before us. We have access to so much knowledge and so many different styles of thinking and ways of thinking
Well, not
that
just
hasn't been
that,
around.
but the veil of suppression has been taken off too.
Yeah.
Because you have to think, before internet, there were books, and if the books didn't fit the narrative of what they wanted you to believe you didn't see those books,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Yeah.
So the internet has made it not only where information is at the fingertips of all people, but
It's immediate.
no one can suppress it.
Yeah.
Unless you're Mark Zuckerberg.
Exactly. You just got zucked.
That's how I feel in church.
But
we all got zucked.
it's a very telling thing for our generation, not only to have that information, but with that information realize the inconsistencies and the fallacies that are within
but they're still good
what we've been taught
within the Bible.
And that's where I think that there's truth that's sprinkled in there.
Oh yeah, there definitely is.
justify.
I definitely think a lot of the stories, a lot of the parables in the Bible are based on true events, but also a lot of them aren't true, but there's still truth behind them because exactly, and there's purpose there.
There's lessons to be learned through everything. It
Oh,
doesn't
yeah.
matter
Right.
if you're a Christian, a Buddhist, a
I
Hindu.
think, especially the New Testament, there's a lot of great lessons to be learned.
Well, and I
It's
think
great for a lot of different people, but it's not for everybody.
I think the
Right.
idea of who Jesus is how we should all try
Oh
to be.
yeah, of course.
It doesn't
That's
matter
the
if you
pinnacle of
subscribe to the religion or
being
not.
a person.
Jesus was a good person.
Yeah.
The issue is that the people who believe he was a good person, that he died for their sins, don't live as if he's their savior.
Yeah.
And that's the issue that I have. And I'm not calling any specific person out with this. I'm venting, airing my concerns and issues with what I've been taught my entire life by the people I've been taught.
But there's
Yeah.
also no point in calling out. I mean, I could sit here with a list of names. It doesn't matter because people are so indoctrinated.
And that's where that
they
doubling
don't
down
want to
of
hear exactly.
that's-
They're
that's
not
where
going
that
to
comes
hear
into
what you
play.
have to say. Like I had an instance with my family, not calling anybody out, just as a general example. I had an instance with my family where I saw a video that talked about how that in the Bible it could have meant pedophile instead of homosexual. So I sent my family this video and I said, "What do you think of this?" I didn't say it was true.
Yeah.
I didn't say F your Bible. I didn't say
I have
anything.
a
I was in
tidbit at
church.
some-
Gotcha. But real quick, let me finish. So I just said, "Hey, what do you guys think about this?" And I got roasted. Roasted. Don't text us about this crap. We don't want to talk about it. You're just trying to start drama. And I'm like, excuse the hell out of me. I at that point have been
Yeah.
struggling with my Christianity for
Yeah.
what, a year,
Mm-hmm.
and I needed answers. And that was just the tip. That was what pushed me over the edge. And I'm not saying that anyone else is responsible for how I believe.
Mhm.
Everyone is accountable for their own actions and their own beliefs. I'm not putting that on anyone but me.
Yeah.
Just saying that they were not necessarily good influences on me, and that was something that in general pushed me over the edge to where I
Yeah.
am now.
And it's easy to
Intentional
do
or
that.
not, yeah.
One sad tidbit about that, about
Oh yeah, I know
it
it's
being
not true.
well, the reason why is because I believe that's in Leviticus. The Greek translation for that word does translate to young boy instead of man to imply pedophilia. But the thing is, that book was written in Hebrew, so.
Well, the issue is
Yeah,
that
and there's a lot of other things too.
Yeah,
Well,
yeah,
like when
just that's.
But my
I know
whole
the
point
one
wasn't
you're
even
talking
just.
about.
It wasn't even just that. Like I think we as human beings can agree pedophilia is disgusting. That's wrong.
That's
not
really
even-
an argument.
Exactly, but like that's not even my point. My whole point in sending that to them was, hey, do you think that there's any way, shape, form, or fashion that the Bible could be fallible in certain things? All I was saying was maybe Jesus didn't necessarily say, give unto Caesar what is Caesar's and give unto God what is God's. Maybe he didn't give a shit about our taxes. Wouldn't that be something?
Mhm.
But we would never know because we're not allowed to question them.
Yeah.
It's just crazy to me. You can't have questions because you're wrong.
Yeah, I feel like it makes you a stronger Christian if you do actually question. And if you actually end up getting answers
Well,
and
and
getting the
that's-
right answers,
Exactly.
then that makes you strong. Especially if you still have the belief to question
Yeah.
and
If you
that's
can't ask one
something-
question and still believe, you shouldn't believe it.
Mhm.
So the church we were going to when we were like at the peak of kind of losing our faith, and this is in no way a reflection of the church that we went to. It was a grassroots here in West Virginia.
Love that church. If
Darren-
I still believed, I would
Darren Cherry
be at
is
that
probably
church.
the closest thing to Jesus.
He almost got me.
The embodiment
He
of
did.
the embodiment of who Christ was in a person.
Yeah.
Because he truly does care.
Darren is a great individual. I'll give him
And
that.
I,
The church
I
is
say that
fantastic.
I say him by name because he is an amazing person.
Yeah.
When we went to him and we told him, hey, we're thinking of leaving the church, this is kind of where we're at, he said, good. Question. He said,
He told us
wrestle
to
with it.
wrestle with it.
Yeah.
Which
And-
was huge for me because
See,
I had never been.
He's
told
one of the
that.
few people in my mind who is definitely, in every way, a good Christian
Yeah.
and a great example of what Christianity should be.
And a
But
lot
there's
of
such
the
a
people that go to that
misrepresentation.
church too.
Exactly.
And I'll say a lot of people that go to that church have ended up at that church because of other churches.
Mhm.
And
Because of the
that's kind of what it was created for.
Hypocrisy within.
Hypocrisy.
Hypocrisy. Well,
You're not wrong.
Appalachia, baby.
But yeah, it is hypocrisy. Like that's they are modern day Pharisees. What they
get tired of
profess to be.
You get tired of hypocrites.
And
I'm just tired of always hearing, "Oh, you're going to hell." Like you woke up and thought something bad. Enjoy burning in flames forever. Like I had an argument with somebody saying, "I don't think that homosexuality is hurting somebody." We could have just not had that conversation in the first place. Don't ask me if you don't want to talk about it. But second of all, like we could have that conversation and disagree, and not leave wanting to punch each other. Nice, but that's totally fine to disagree with each other as long as you're not hurting anybody.
Mhm.
yeah.
It's not like I was having a conversation with the Westboro Baptist Church. Like, it's just a friend.
Mm-hmm.
But the fact that you can't disagree with that view without being like, oh, well, enjoy hell.
Well, that's
Why does that have to be the end of every conversation?
that's part of where we're at as a country right now too.
It's
that
gross.
It's I mean, that's kind of, it's very similar to anybody who's super political, almost like any severe right or severe left.
Yeah.
Well, if you don't think this way, then fuck you.
You're
Or
wrong.
Well,
enjoy
no,
it while
everybody
you're
is
there.
entitled to believe whatever the fuck they want to
Well, and
believe.
As
That's
long as
why-
they aren't hurting anybody,
Exactly,
that's all I
exactly.
care about.
And
as
that's-
long as you don't impose it.
That's
on
why
other
I
people.
prefaced what we were talking about there with that everyone's on a journey.
Mhm.
It doesn't matter where you're at, if you're Hindu, Christian, if you don't believe in anything, you're on a journey of spirituality.
Yeah.
Because whether you believe that you're a spiritual being or not, there's some part of you that is.
Yeah.
We're not just here by chance.
Yeah. And whether you see spirituality as something beyond oneself, or you could even see it as, I mean, the literal atoms that we are.
Yeah, I mean,
there's just different
or if we're all ones and
combinations.
zeros.
Right.
You know, we'll
Yeah.
never know.
Everything is connected in its own
Yeah.
sort of way. There's atoms make up all of us, and
Right.
everything that is.
And it can't be created or destroyed. So if you
Yeah.
think, like, you
There's
brought
an
up
ebb and flow to
reincarnation.
Yeah.
Do I believe in reincarnation? Not in the traditional sense.
Mhm.
Well, maybe. I don't know. That's the thing. I'm open. Who knows?
Right.
Maybe I've lived 1,000 lives. Maybe I'll live 1,000 more. At this point in my journey, I don't really care. I'm just
Yeah.
glad I'm on it.
Yeah.
But what matters to me is like, okay, think about it, like you said, you were made up of atoms.
Mm.
Matter cannot be created or destroyed. Come at me, Christians. It's a scientific fact. It's a fact. So whether you believe in reincarnation, your matter, what you are, is living on in one way or another.
Yeah. But also, in another sense, like, my brain is the only thing telling me there's a difference between this pillow and your body.
Exactly.
It's just...
So this is gonna.
This is
live
all
on. Everything's
here.
gonna
This is
live
all
on.
around us. Everything is there whether you like it or not, and therefore it's kind of intertwined.
Well, we
It's-
all are.
It's
And not
all
to get-
part of it. It's,
Not to get like too conspiracy minded, but that's all things we're taught too.
Mhm.
We're taught by tradition what things are, how things are, why things are.
Right, but
Mm.
also on that note, like, yes, I do believe there's a bigger conspiracy. That was probably a conversation for another day. But one group of, like, people, yes, they can control the world, whatever, fuck them. But they can't control every single scientist, every single doctor.
yeah.
At some point, someone's going to slip up. And I think for
But
the
that's
most
why you
part,
get those-
like, scientific facts are, you know, probably true.
well, a
But that's
lot.
why you get those people like Sean Baker who get their license revoked.
Right,
When they
it's-
start
but
doing
that's
things
obvious,
that
like,
are against
The fact that we
norm.
can sit here and talk about that proves
Yeah.
that they can't hush everything.
But
Well,
what's
and I think-
also kind of remarkable to me is, I mean, yeah, you can't hush everything, but there's also, kind of as a side note, like, you can be the smartest person in the world, but I still think none of us really know what the fuck's going
and
on.
we never
everything,
can.
science is guess.
Yeah, I mean,
There's
we
nothing
just know
factual.
that if this happens, then so far, what happens when this happens, then this happens.
So that's
Exactly.
got to be the way it happens
And
every
like
time.
you
Yeah.
have to go through
That's
so
all
much
science
crap
is.
Yeah.
to
That's
come
all
to a scientific
doctors are.
theory.
Yeah, it's just like making
The
the
thing
connection
is-
between the dots.
Yeah,
that's
they
why it's never
can't-
a fact. It's always a theory.
But
And
Yeah,
that's-
well, I mean, there's
So
I mean, to an extent,
Yeah,
but
to an
like nothing
extent.
can ever be proven because it can be one thing for thousands of years, and then tomorrow you might
Yeah.
discover that
who knows, our universe,
something completely different.
the universal rules could change at any given moment for whatever
Right.
reason, and we
but
won't
something that
realize
you
why.
said is that they can't control every person.
They can't.
Well, they can't, but they can demonize them.
Yeah,
Right, but
that's
you
true.
still
That's
can't
reputation.
That's kind of what the spirituality, in the sense that not tied to a religion.
But think
is,
of who
right?
our generation is now. Like
I know.
we're breaking that, and we're
Well,
now
that's-
to the
that's
point where
part of what.
I think that's why you believe we're coming to this great awakening, which I think
Yeah.
is really actually kind of biblical, because the Bible talks about a great awakening and a falling away. And maybe, in theory, this is just a crazy outside looking in type of thing, but maybe that is true. And we are at the end of the world. It's just the dawning of a new age.
Yeah.
And the falling away is us falling away from the old ways of thinking and being controlled, and we're awakening to the way things could be.
I definitely think a lot of the stories in the Bible could be true, and prophecy-wise, they could be true. But there's just so many different variables on how it can actually turn out.
And I don't think one person could ever say until we see it.
Well, and there's no way of going back to see when they were translated, what was added, what was taken away.
Yeah, I mean,
It's all hush hush.
It's all like a very secretive.
And there's even
thing.
Not only is there specific changes, but there's also mistakes that were made.
Yeah.
Like
from the
beginning?
beginning?
Yeah, because literally all of those scribes, all of those scrolls from before, they had to handwrite those. You've got to sit there. It took people up like more than a year sometimes.
So think before that, it was just stories that were
verbally spoken.
And you play a game of telephone, and by the end of it, you've got a completely different thing. So one thing that they got wrong could have changed the entire course of our entire
Well, and something that I never looked into was the story of Jonah. When he was swallowed by the whale.
A whale cannot actually.
Do you know how big a whale's throat is?
It's
like that big.
Really?
Yeah.
And for those that can't, well, we're not recording.
It's like that's like
less than
6 inches around.
Your hand couldn't hardly fit through, and they have teeth that would like destroy anything that comes in.
Well, it doesn't say. That's another misinterpretation. It doesn't say he got swallowed by a whale. It says he got swallowed by a big fish.
We're talking about a blue whale?
Well.
Whales
who knows? Maybe the types of fish that were back in those days were much bigger.
Exactly. You know what? Whether or not
that's true too.
But my thing is, whether or not the dude got swallowed by a fish, that's irrelevant. That's cool. Like that's a great story. Who survived? That's dope. But like my whole point is you could interpret so many things, and even if that really did happen, you're probably never going to go through that. But you can learn something from that. You can learn faith and use faith.
You can learn something from everything.
Yeah. Exactly, and you can have faith in so many ways. It doesn't have to be in just like the Christian God. You can have faith that you're going to make it to tomorrow.
I think first and foremost, you need to have absolute, utter faith in yourself.
And Christianity, to me, I'm not saying as a whole it was supposed to be that way, but to me, it took away any confidence I had, any faith in myself, because you're not supposed to, I don't think.
You're not supposed to. You're supposed to have faith in God and what He's going to do.
Exactly. And when you have any doubt or anything, that you're bad. And so I lived 23 years always being told I was wrong, I was bad, unintentional. Like everyone I spoke to had good intentions. I do believe that.
Yeah, yeah.
But when you live your whole life saying you're evil, you're bad, nothing you ever do is right, your best is this filthy rags, you kind of start to hate yourself.
Yeah, and that's how you end up with a personality that imposes personal beliefs on other people. Yeah.
Like, seriously, I can't tell you how many times I've sobbed because somebody told me they didn't believe in God, and I'm like, well, you're going to hell. Like, I think that's so gross now, but it took so much to open my eyes to that.
It takes time. It takes a lot of different things.
That's something that I was going to mention when I talked about having prefaced it by saying we're all on a journey.
Right.
Is that there is no right or wrong in the idea that we're on the same journey. There is no, this is what it means, follow me, because everyone's wrong and right at the same time.
Yeah.
That's that Schrodinger's cat.
Yeah, Schrodinger's cat.
Yeah. The idea is that if you put a cat in a box, it's both dead and alive at the same time.
I think it's with poison or something.
Something
with
some poison. To that effect.
Yeah, the cat's in the box with the poison, and if you don't know if the cat ate the poison or not, so at the same time it's both dead and alive, so it's both.
So that's it's the same idea.
But that's the whole premise of Christianity.
That's what I'm saying. It's both right
like
and wrong.
Seeing without believing is without seeing is faith. Sorry, that took me a second. That one always messes me up.
But where I'm going with that is that everyone believes the same thing, and everyone is right and wrong at the same time, because there is no outer body way of knowing it is.
It's not black and white.
But that's the thing, is that like you can justify anything. I can manifest the idea that I am a king. I can go to bed tonight and dream that I am a king and say that's a prophetic dream. Doesn't mean that I'm going to be a king. It just means that I've thought about it so hard that I make that reality a thing in my mind.
Yeah.
Right? And that's
it's
the
manifestation almost at that point.
And it
exactly.
is.
And that's something that we've been getting really into.
Yeah.
Which sounds weird the way I said it, but like for me, manifestation is
really
like I still pray. I still pray every single night. Do I know what I'm praying to? No. Am I kind of just trying to manifest at night? Kind of. I think that's what I'm doing because I'm like, okay, so tomorrow I want to have a good day. Like I just kind of tell myself what I want to happen.
Well, it's affirmations too.
Right. And so you tell yourself every day, like, things are getting better, I am more positive. You start to get more positive. But it's really hard when you surround yourself with people who are constantly like, okay, that's great, but you're still doing this a little bit wrong. Or, oh, I just have one thing to correct you on. Well, when you're constantly being corrected, yes, I think that's great for growth. But you come to a point where you just need somebody to be like, you're doing good.
Yeah.
And I don't mean like with your job, with work, but just like being a human being that's
existing.
Alive. Exactly. Like,
it's rough out here, man.
Right? Like
it's
I totally want people
that's...
to tell me you could do better, you could do a little bit better.
Yeah, but you also need people to tell you, hey, you've gone this far. Shit.
Yeah,
that's
you're doing
so
good.
Helpful. And I don't think I have that too.
Yeah.
Not that I don't have it now, but like, and not that people
as
aren't
a person
trying.
in your history.
Exactly. Yeah.
Well, and it's different coming from different types of people and people that see from the outside. It's different coming from someone who's your husband and someone who you don't see but maybe one time every other week, right?
One time a year.
One time a year.
Not that what you say doesn't matter. It does.
Yeah, I know. It's different. It's just different relationships and different meanings behind different things. And that's kind of what the Moment Maker's mentality is all about, right? Is taking your life and creating the best thing you can from it.
It's making your own opportunity. It's making your own moment. It's making your own way forward. Right. It's doing what you believe is right for yourself.
Yeah.
And not letting other people question you or tell you you're wrong, but fully believing in what you do, not waiting for the opportunity to come to you, but making it yourself.
That's exactly where I've been lately. Well, or trying to anyway.
Yeah,
it's hard
it's
to
a struggle.
Get to that point,
it's a struggle.
That's what I've been trying to do. Like, I have in my head, and I never did before, an idea of what I want. Is it exactly what I want to be forever? Who knows? But it's what I want as
No,
of
of course it's not going to be what you want forever.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But I think it's worth pursuing until you tell yourself you can do it. Exactly. You're just always climbing that ladder.
Steps.
And it might not be what you want to do in 20 years, but it's what you want to do now, and that is worth pursuing.
Well,
without people being negative about it.
That's why I want so badly to create this community, so that you have the group of people that you wouldn't have found otherwise that can give you that you're doing good.
Yeah, to give you the support you need to continue to be yourself and to do what you want to do.
And constructive criticism in a healthy way.
Yeah, exactly.
Not
it's
like,
a fine line.
You're fucking up. But sometimes you even need to hear that.
Yeah, you don't need...
But coming from somebody like, if one of you two were to be like, hey, you're kind of being a bitch, that would be different to me than like somebody we used to go to church with saying, ooh, I don't like your lifestyle. I don't think you're a good person.
Tattoos? Oh
my God.
It's different when it's a person who you actually know is trying to help you.
Somebody that you have a good relationship with. Or even a complete
stranger. And they'll also if they are that person, then they'll realize how to come at the situation in a manner that's good and appropriate and constructive.
Like for Brennan, he handles things like, if I were to come to him and be like, you're being a real ass right now, he handles that much better than I do. Yeah. So when he tells me things like that, he says it in a different way that I handle better. Not to say I should be coddled. Nobody should be. But you should know how to speak. Like, read the room.
It's so easy to get defensive.
Right.
And I feel like...
thing with religion.
Yeah. I feel like personally it really depends on the person for me when I get defensive because everyone does it.
That's the thing with religion is it teaches you to be defensive because everyone's going to question why you believe what you believe. And if you can't defend that, then you're not doing your justice as a religious person.
Yeah.
That just brought back such a weird memory. I remember we had like our Wednesday night because you couldn't go to church once a week. That's not good enough. You had to go all the time. So one Wednesday night, which was fine with me, that's how I had friends. But one Wednesday night they broke us up into little groups and they handed us these pamphlets and they're like, okay, what we're going to do is we're going to attack you. And keep in mind, I wasn't even
with
10
knives
years
and
old yet.
swords.
Pretty much. Well, the armor of God. But seriously, I'm not making fun of the Bible. That just made me think of that. But they said, what we're going to do is basically we're going to like attack you with things. We're going to split you into groups, and you're going to attack their faith. And we need you to defend it. So I had the role of attacking someone's faith. And boy, I said, your Bible's shit. And they were like, hey, don't say that. And I'm like, you're right. Maybe I went a little too far, but like, don't put me on the spot like that. First of all, and I'm 8, 9 years old, and you're telling me to defend my faith like to the death. How am I supposed to do that? Like I'm
well,
a
that's
child.
why they teach you.
But you shouldn't be taught. It's not like
right.
I guess.
Well, nobody gives you that preparation for anything else in life. Like I feel like maybe teach me how to be a good person.
Yeah.
And not just how to attack somebody else who's attacking my faith. Like teach me how to come at them with love and be like, hey, I don't have the answers for you, but I love you and we can look it up together.
Yeah. Well, and I think that's part of why we have the divide that we have right now in the country. Right? It's September 2020, right? And we have a race war. We have fires going through California.
Oh God, yeah.
COVID
was it a boy
ravaged
or a
the
girl?
world. It was arsons.
What?
I thought that right? Wasn't that a thing?
It was I don't remember if it was a boy or a girl.
Where they did like the smoke thing to say if it was boy or girl.
Oh, I
Isn't
think
that
it was a
what started
girl.
the fire?
It was a girl.
Okay,
It's a
see, I
girl.
was wondering.
Well, one of them, but I mean, there's fires
Multiple?
all over the East
And
Coast, Oregon,
The
Washington.
That's crazy.
You
Well,
said east.
Portland
I
is,
did. Oh my bad.
Yeah.
It's
Portland is wild right now, anyways, isn't it?
Well, in Portland, that whole thing happened with Chaz or Chad, whatever they wanted to call it, and
Chaz. I like that for him.
it's why we're at the point where we're at, because you have the divide of the traditional conservative Christian right against the rebelling liberal left.
Yeah.
That pushes against anything that the conservative right has to offer, because the conservative right were the ones that raised the liberal left. And people like us, and I think
It's a dog chasing
growing.
its tail.
Well, there's a growing majority that are right down the middle.
Yeah, because that's where you should be. You shouldn't be any one way that way,
Yeah.
any one way this way. You should be a well-rounded individual.
But isn't that weird that that's, not to keep bringing up religion, but I've been a very religious person my whole life, so it's shaped a lot of who I am, which is funny based on where I'm at now. But like what you say, I agree with 100%. You should be right in the middle. You should be able to see both sides and to think logically. But that's so anti-Bible, because the Bible says if we want you to be hot or cold, if you're lukewarm, I'll spew you out of my mouth.
But that's
He
not
said,
how,
you literally make me sick. That's crazy to me.
But that's not how Jesus lived.
That's
like Jesus
weren't
was not a
Jesus's
conservative
words.
Christian.
That
I
was-
know. And
Well, that was God
that's what's
speaking,
so
but-
hypocritical about the way that it's
the Old
taught.
Testament and the
That's
New
cool.
Testament are so hypocritical.
Yeah.
to each other.
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of different theories that the Old Testament God is a completely different entity than
Well,
what the New
that
Testament
would make
God
That makes
even.
sense.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like it really does.
But doesn't it? Those are some of the things that lead me to believe, like, hey, maybe something was tampered with here. Maybe something was put in here that.
You can
to
look
keep
back
us-
and see
Well,
the
specifically,
tampers.
that Bible verse alone keeps us divided, because if a house divided can't stand,
Mhm.
right?
Mhm.
But doesn't that work perfectly for their, like,
well,
when
you
they're
have to be
pushing?
broken to find the hope, right? Like you
No,
have
but what
to
I'm
be
saying is,
divided
like,
to-
I'm talking more conspiracy.
Well,
here. Like, let's say
okay.
there's a government conspiracy thing,
Yeah.
right? Doesn't it make sense for them to want to keep us
Well,
divided?
that's
Well, yeah,
So
that's
we're
what's
fighting.
happening. Literally, that's why
Exactly.
there's a two-party
But they
system.
work it so
Yeah.
well into their religion.
That's why there's
it's
a
like, you
two-party
don't even
system, but
think
there's
about
actually
it.
Yeah.
3 parties. That's what's so fucking crazy about
There's
it.
more
is
than
there's-
3 parties, Brennan.
Well,
But
I know.
that's
but
why we
there's-
make them
there's,
sick. Because
There's
they're-
actually, like,
Yeah.
I know there's at least 4, but I know there's
Well,
probably
there's
more
independent,
than that.
libertarian, Republican,
Green
Democrat,
Party.
Green. You've got Vermin Supreme, who runs
Yeah.
every year.
What even is he labeled as?
I
He's
don't.
just a funny
I
guy.
think he's libertarian, but I don't know.
Yeah.
He's
He's just
doesn't
free
give a
ponies for all. And
Yeah,
and
free
wearing
ponies
boots
for
on
all.
your
He's got
head.
a zombie
that.
preparedness
Yep.
plan.
He's up there on my list.
Better than 2 choices we have currently.
Well, yeah, but that's the thing. There's not 2 choices, and that's what's perpetuated
There
by
is,
the
man,
media,
you're wasting your
by
Trust
the
me,
vote.
left,
I
the
know.
right. They perpetuate the idea that it's 1 or 2,
yeah.
not 12.
And they're
Right.
both authoritarian, if we're being honest.
And they are.
here.
There's no better, lesser of 2 evils. There isn't.
The fact that it has come to a lesser of 2 evils.
That's
makes me
how it's
sick.
always been.
If you're going to attack me on Facebook for saying I'm going to vote third party, how about we attack the system that's forcing us to choose between a pedophile and a pedophile?
Yeah.
How about we deal with the root of the issue and stop fighting each other? Like, get your head out of your ass and let's deal with this because there's safety in numbers, and if we all do this together, they can't pick us off one by one. There's a reason why there's a race war right now. There's a reason why all this crazy shit is happening. There's a freaking election, perfect time for COVID, but nobody thinks that's suspicious.
I mean, it definitely
bullshit.
could be a coincidence of the timing, but they're definitely riding on it hard.
Well, they're at least milking it for all it's worth.
Yeah,
Like,
yeah.
I'm not saying that I don't think COVID is
and
real, and I'm not saying that I don't think the race war is justified. It is.
course.
100%. But
that's why it's happening now, and then after
right.
all of this, it's going to be brought down little by little by little, and everybody's going to forget about it.
That race war until
Which
it's
it
dealt
might.
with.
It might actually this time. I really feel like there is a big change that could happen.
Maybe we're dawning into a new age.
Yeah.
Where
I
people
believe
are
that there is a big change coming, but I think that the media being controlled by who it's controlled by, the 6 companies that own the world, they choose what words they use very carefully to stir up whatever side of the aisle they want to stir up. That's why you see a black man was shot by a white cop, right? You don't see a man was shot by a cop or by law enforcement. You see a black man was shot by a white cop.
And then they're like, oops, did we start this? Oh, yeah, of course you did.
But also you see, like, so many people can, those companies control so many different things. If you Google Joe Jorgensen, let's say, not too much comes up when it comes to the presidential campaigns.
Yeah.
Because, I mean, you can control what people see because, like, what do you really think that Google's not using their power to influence
what
they want?
And that was something that happened with Tulsi Gabbard.
Yeah.
Tulsi Gabbard was a Democratic candidate that was running for the primaries that was beat out by Biden. By Biden. She filed a lawsuit against Google.
Yeah.
Because they suppressed her campaign. Like,
I know so many people who support Joe Jorgensen,
Yeah.
but you do not see shit about it on the news or anything like
And
that.
you're not going to. I'm surprised you're allowed to see it on Facebook, if I'm being honest. And they probably are only allowing it because it's so
I
far
really
now.
think
That's probably
my
too late.
memes might only be shown to other people who are sharing those memes.
I see them all the time.
Exactly.
I share them. I share them because you share them.
Maybe other people just don't react.
But they might think it's safe now because they're like, oh, well, we're so close to election. Everybody's already decided they're voting for Biden or Trump or whatever, that they think it's probably safe to allow things like that. Or they'd have their handy-dandy fact checkers come in and just block your post for no reason.
Yeah.
I had a friend who literally just posted the word coronavirus, and it got flagged for false information. Yeah, and he shared a screenshot of it, and he's like, what the hell is going on?
There's another weird case that I've heard about, but I don't remember it, so I'm not going to bring it up. Somebody talk about something.
Well, I think that's a good place to maybe, like, kind of cap it.
Really? How long have we been going?
I really don't know.
We have to get Rose.
We've only been going 47
almost
minutes.
an hour.
We need to do another one now.
We
You
should.
should be in more.
Well,
I would love
I
to
do
be
want to say, if you're still hanging with us after talking about religion and everything, I do want to say that we're not attacking any one religion or any one person.
I might have come across that way, and I didn't
Well, and
want to.
what I want to say is that we've all experienced firsthand personal accounts of people in our lives that have had a negative impact on us in regards to religion.
I think part
That's
of our
why-
awakening is me being able to realize, hey, I'm kind of being a bitter ass right now, and so I do apologize for the way I word things.
Well, but
I don't mean to attack. I'm just kind of trying to express that I'm a different
But
person.
again, that's why I prefaced it by saying we're all on the same journey.
Right.
We're all just trying out here.
We're all just trying to do our best, and that's all we can do. And that's again why we've kind of chosen the moniker Moment Makers for everything that we do. The tag for Sparrow is to just do your best, do the best that you can in everything.
Yeah,
you do.
and I think also a part of the Moment Makers community is we're not going to judge you for any decision that you're going to make. It's just don't impose your beliefs on other people and
don't hurt anybody.
Yeah,
and sharing.
if
is
you want to
different than
believe that,
imposing.
that's fine. Do that. Be those things.
Yeah.
You want to
It's
get a pet
cool,
rock and
as
pretend
long
like
as
it's
you
your
don't hurt
guardian
other
angel,
people
do it. Exactly. And that
don't
should be the
fuck them
basis
up,
for
then it's
everybody.
okay.
Yeah.
Why can't that
We
be
should all be
everyone's
free to
basis?
live how we want to.
Free of judgment or like being just ridiculed or to made to feel less than. And I don't want, and that's why I'm apologizing now, because I don't want to make Christians feel the way that they've made me feel. That's not right. Two wrongs don't make it right.
Well, and it's not all Christians, like we
Well,
said.
I just mean because I was specifically seemed like I was shitting on Christians, unintentionally, intentionally.
Well, and I think that's your process of trying to get to a place of empathy and compassion and understanding after being hurt for so long, right?
I
But
think a lot of people are just misguided because there are so many people out there who push things that aren't not even who push things that aren't even Bible oriented.
Yeah.
Right.
And if you want to believe in the Bible, that is great. But there's a lot of people out there who try and make it out to be what it's not.
Well, and the overwhelming thing with Christians is that they impose the idea that you have to believe the way they do or you're going to hell.
Mm-hmm.
Well, that might be true, but some of us are okay with that reality.
Yeah.
Right? Like, to those that don't believe that way of thinking, it's not a real thing. So it's not something we're worried about.
Mm-hmm.
So,
but to them it's real, so I do understand the concern.
But there has to come a point.
I don't like the judgment that comes with it.
But there has to come a point where you either cut ties, cut your losses, or you understand that people are comfortable with the choices they make and the reality they've chose.
Be your own individual without anyone else telling you what you should be.
Right.
That's a good place to end it. Thanks for tuning in. We'll have more like this in the future.